morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for today's Rural Kingston Economic Strategy announcement. We're just going to give it a few minutes here while everyone else joins. We are expecting 10 different individuals to be on today's announcement. So we should be getting started at about 10:04, 10:05. Thanks very much. All right, seeing that I believe we have the majority of our attendees, I think we can go ahead and kick things off. So once again, welcome and thank you for joining us for today's announcement. So welcome to the Rural Kingston Economic Strategy announcement. This is some very exciting news that we're excited to be bringing to you today. We are joined today by Mayor Patterson, Craig Desjardins, and Tracy Snow, and we'll be walking you through a bit of the background from this project and some of the next steps that we anticipate for this project. So today's agenda is going to just be some quick opening remarks from communications, followed by opening remarks by Mayor Patterson, some project background, implementation, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions from any members of the media who have joined us today. Having said that, this is very exciting news. So without further ado, I would like to pass things over to Mayor Patterson.
Thanks very much, Mark, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be here for the launch of Kingston's Rural Economic Development Strategy. I think first and foremost, this is really about recognizing the importance of rural Kingston, how important the rural area is to the City of Kingston, but also recognizing that it's different. As City Council, we have made a real effort to make sure that we see everything through a rural lens and adjust approaches that are different. And it's interesting that there's been so much discussion across the country about the rural-urban divide. But for us here in Kingston, we're actually embracing that difference and working on a strategy to actually have the rural and the urban areas work together. And one example of that is, how we can empower and strengthen our agricultural-based businesses in the rural area to succeed and grow, and how that ties into our vision for food security and more local food in the urban area. We have a new food entrepreneurship hub that we've set up at Ports Olympic Harbor, and being able to link that with the growth of some of our rural businesses. So really, this is about empowering the growth of rural business in different ways, and meeting those needs, helping them to grow and succeed, attract new rural businesses, and then also meeting the needs of rural residents. And of course, over the last couple of years in the pandemic, one of the big needs that clearly has come to the forefront is the need for rural broadband and better access to internet. And I'm delighted that we will soon have some exciting news and progress to be able to share on that front. So there's lots of details, lots of great work to happen. Very, very excited to have Craig Desjardins and Tracy Snow as part of the team to work on that. So like all of you, I'll be looking forward to hearing more of the details this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Patterson. So at this point in time, I'd like to hand things over to Craig Desjardins, Director of Strategy, Innovation, and Partnerships for the City, to walk through the project background.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, Mayor Patterson. A special thank you to you and the rest of Council. I know Councillor Oosterhoff is on the call today for your leadership in support of rural. It's it's one thing to say rural is important. It's another thing to actually give us the resources and support to make that happen. And we're very excited to share how we're implementing things. And again, we'll get to the introduction of Tracy momentarily. There we go.
Here we go, back on track.
All right. So as the mayor referenced, the vision here in the development of the strategy is really based on developing a strong and resilient rural community, and really emphasizing the how integral that strong rural Kingston is to the overall health of our community. In order to support rural communities, the city has invested in this strategy. It's invested in resources to implement the strategy, and it brings all of the resources of the various departments together to explore how they can contribute to short and long-term success. And we're just so excited to get that underway. Lots of stuff in the background going on, but official launch today. Next slide, please. So just again, a little bit of context for the rural strategy. It's a multi-year plan to identify, create, and guide opportunities. Very importantly, it's about leveraging opportunities, the assets, the industries, the experience that benefit all of the community, in particular the businesses and agriculture. I'm really excited to see how the City of Kingston can support our agricultural community. And ultimately, it's about positioning the City of Kingston for sustainable economic growth across the city, both urban and rural. Next slide. Just as way of background, the strategy is guided by Council's strategic plan to strengthen economic development opportunities. It was approved as part in relationship to the integrated economic development strategy with our partners, Kingston Economic Development, and I think some of them are joining us today, which is great. And really, the model that we're using is based on the incredible success we've had with the workforce development and immigration strategy, where a strategy was created with the community, a co-creation of a strategy. Funding was provided to support the implementation, and we've had just incredible success, and we look forward to doing the same thing for rural in securing additional federal and provincial grant funds. In the case of the workforce developments, it's over $2.5 million now in grant dollars to leverage the taxpayer money with additional resources. Next slide. Just to give you a little bit of context, and I think it's really exciting. I think a picture says 1,000 words. So the next slide, I'll give you the picture. But what is the geographic boundaries of what we define as rural Kingston? Well, it's the area north of the 401. It's areas to the east and west of the city outside of the urban core. And from a technical standpoint, and this is about the data, it's composed of 2 complete rural census tracts, and that's how the government counts people and slices and dices the population, and 2 portions of urban rural mixed census tracts within the city's limit. And next slide, this will give you an idea of just how significant the rural component of our community, of the City of Kingston, really is. It is the majority of the land mass. It always impresses me when I see this to remind me how vital rural Kingston is to the core of our community. Next slide. The strategy was developed with our partners, as I said, at Stiletto Consulting, and they were meticulous in their approach. It was absolutely data-driven, more than 9,500 data points, 35 historic city reports, asset mapping using ArcGIS, our geospatial mapping, an incredible number of community consultations. And again, this will be ongoing. This is not a one-time consultation. This is an ongoing co-creation and co-delivery. And Tracy's going to talk a little bit about that. But we had one-on-one consultations. I can't say enough about the Rural Advisory Committee and their participation and advice and insights as we advanced on developing the strategy. And always important, the public engagement led by our communications and customer experience team through Get Involved Kingston, getting your insights and advice on what is a priority for you as rural residents. Next slide. So now it's my pleasure, and actually the big news of this entire strategy, because we have had council approve the strategy last year, is really the introduction of the person who's going to drive this, the person who will implement this strategy, Tracy Snow. Tracy is no stranger to our area. We were very fortunate to secure her from a neighboring community, which she has more than a dozen years in rural economic development, leadership, and business experience going back many years before that. Tracy, I know, is going to go full force on this project, and I'll hand it over to you, Tracy, to talk a little bit about all the exciting things you've got planned for the coming years and months. Take it away.
Thank you, Craig and Mayor Patterson, for your input. I really appreciate that. And I'm really excited to be starting this new role. We started beginning of December. It's taken a few months to get my feet wet, understand what's happening with the City of Kingston, what's happening with our rural area and our neighboring partners as well, and building some of those relationships back up. I've had the pleasure of working with many of these partners in the past with previous roles. So it's just starting up a new conversation. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background, Craig had alluded to the property in the Mass area. 83% actually of the land base of the City of Kingston is considered rural. There's an estimated population of about 19,000 people based on the 2016 census. And 15% of the whole city's population actually takes over that 83% of the city's land area. Population has really risen sharply, and there was a new article that came out from the 2021, some information on 2021 Stats Canada numbers from 2016 census numbers. And City of Kingston has actually grown 7% in population. The Ontario average is only 5.8. So real growth happening within our region. A lot of that also rural. People are looking for a balanced lifestyle, better choices, a better cost of living. And the City of Kingston offers that in all capacities, whether it's urban or rural. Next slide, please. So businesses, in the Stiletto studies, they reviewed what were the businesses that were actually in rural Kingston. There's approximately 380 companies, registered companies as of 2020 with employees operating in rural Kingston. That excludes agriculture, and I'll talk about that in a second. Largest sectors were construction, retail, professional services, personal services. And one of the things about rural business and rural opportunities is I'm a really big proponent that you can do business from anywhere. Lived and worked with that for many years and in other roles. And there's an amazing thing about living rurally and having your business there with that balanced lifestyle, but then also having a business. It doesn't mean to say you have to have a retail face. There are many businesses as you're driving in our rural communities that are actually functioning, shipping worldwide behind closed doors, and you would never know it. It's pretty exciting. Next slide, please. So again, continuing on the business piece, more than 300 businesses are in the rural area. I think there's probably more. These are registered businesses, so there may be some more businesses that are just smaller, self-employed businesses that we'll find out about more as hopefully COVID subsides a little bit and I can get out in the communities and say hi. There are an estimated 148 farms within the city limits, each of them a minimum 30,000 in annual revenue. Again, we're hoping to see that grow and work with these farms on some opportunities. A little bit, I guess I'll talk about the strategy piece a little bit in terms of the farms and some opportunities with business and farms. Next slide, please. So we've designated the role in this particular section into 4 categories, 4 pillars. One being rural economic development, so rural business support, and I'll get into those details in a second. Rural tourism revitalization, rural employment lands development, and workforce development. There are multiple other things that are happening within those 4 pillars, but really to kind of hone in on what those expectations are and some of the responsibilities and those looking at those gaps and opportunities. The 4 pillars make perfect sense to be addressing right now and work under those. Next slide, please. So first one was rural economic development. What does that look like? So that would be ag and local food growth, innovative farming, rural business support, rural health support. I was recently part of a DDQIC Queen's University panel supporting what rural health looks like in our region and how we can make it better. Rural business support, how do we work with our local businesses, with our Kingston Economic Development partners to actually help support businesses in the rural community. Next slide, please. Rural tourism revitalization. So I've had a couple of conversations with Kingston Tourism already on how we can actually look at tourism opportunities in our rural communities. Also looking at our neighboring partners, having conversations with our neighboring municipalities already to talk about what are they doing from a tourism perspective and how can we work together and collaborate on some opportunities. It makes everybody work harder, saves on resources and people and time and money, and makes just good sense. Next slide, please. So number 3 was the rural employment lands development. This is a longer term strategy. So reviewing opportunities for rural hamlet growth to include residential, commercial, industrial development. Again, longer term strategy with a lot of work and research to be done on what are those opportunities, how do we push forward some of those residential, commercial, and industrial opportunities for services and everything that needs to happen to make those effective. So we'll keep you posted on that as time goes. Next slide, please. And the last pillar of the Rural Economic Development Strategy is workforce development. So supporting employment needs and addressing challenges for all sectors. So I'll be responsible for looking at programs and opportunities in all of workforce development for the City of Kingston, but also specifically for Rural Kingston, and looking at some programs and some opportunities to help support rural businesses with access to tools and resources, including agriculture as well. Next slide, please. So leveraging Rural Kingston assets, what does that mean? We have significant tourism potential because of the geography and natural attributes and history that the City of Kingston offers already. And we have a large portion of agricultural land benefiting from trends in local and artisanal products and food. I was in a meeting last night with Frontenac and the Frontenac County and the Open Farms Initiative, and just hearing the farmers and what they're doing and how excited they were in the past, working collaboratively to make rural farming and rural ag, an important piece for the community to see. And also growing a rural population that will demand local services and products to support it. And we've seen that in the population growth. And they're going to need services and products and support in order to help them be successful as well. Next slide, please. So the strategy. So working with our regional communities, neighboring partners, helping enable rural initiatives. Already started those conversations, been working hard the past few months, working with our partners, rural partners, working with our municipalities in the area, working with our workforce partners, just seeing what everybody's doing, where are those gaps and opportunities, how can we help, collaborate with them, support them, and create new things for us to be pushing out towards the rural communities. So again, supporting new and existing businesses, working alongside Kingston Economic Development. We have a great relationship with Kingston Economic Development. I've had many meetings with them already on supporting ourselves together and working collaboratively, supporting for existing farms with new development. We have some opportunities in farming development that we're going to actually be looking at some succession plan discussions with farmers and also growth options with farmers. We have a new abattoir that's actually going to be happening to the region west of us in Napanee. It was confirmed last week that the abattoir has actually bought a piece of property that fits their needs. And I was lucky enough to work with the potential owner of it's not the potential owner, the owner of this particular abattoir for the past few years on building this opportunity. And it just opens up the door for so much potential and growth for our farmers in rural Kingston. And it will be a federal facility, so allows these farmers to not just look at selling product within our area, but also selling outside the province and possibly south of us as well. So collaborating with Kingston Tourism, as I said earlier, on rural tourism revitalization, already working with Frontenac County and South Frontenac on what those opportunities look like. And then, of course, like I had said earlier, strategy and implementation towards hamlet and business park development, which will take some time. Next slide, please. So I am the dedicated support for Rural Kingston. It's a full-time role that started beginning of December, and I am hoping to be very soon, amid COVID, on the ground running, literally. My biggest experience is actually just meeting people face to face and listening, hearing to what you have to say, wanting to collaborate with you on looking for resources and tools that will help you grow and do whatever your passion and goals are. Next slide, please. Implementation. So a big part of the next step will be developing some strategic work groups, and I'll talk a little bit that on the next slide. They'll be sector specific, and I think they'll be really helpful, engaging, looking at some opportunities for rural businesses and rural farms. Identify the partnerships and collaboration opportunities. So already been doing that the past few months, working with our partners and our municipalities to support each other on moving forward. And a community outreach. So looking to do some market validation of what that strategy looks like, what the the project components and the business opportunities look like moving forward. Next slide, please. Next steps, as I had said, sector-specific team meetings. I was lucky enough quite a few years ago, sad enough, pre-COVID, where I was holding sector team meetings for another municipality I was working for. And they worked really well. We pulled together groups within a specific sector. So we're hoping to do one with rural business and one with farming food, two separate, where we meet a couple of times, talk about gaps, talk about opportunities, and build projects together that'll help fill those gaps and opportunities and help them either grow or succeed or whatever it is that those goals are looking for. The program worked really well, talking to those sector groups a couple of years ago when I was working with some other sectors in the region west of us. And I'm really hopeful and encouraged that we're going to do the same thing here. There's going to be some more media and some more announcement and some more communication set out to the community to inform you of what those dates will look like and how you can participate. And then after that, we'll be reporting to our residents to inform them of, what those results came out of, what those gaps look like, what are those opportunities that we'll be addressing and pulling together to support the rural Kingston communities. Next step, please, or next slide. And there you go. So learn more. So after this announcement, there's going to be a new webpage, cityofkingston.ca, Rural Kingston Strategy. My contact information will be there as well, and a little bit of information with regards to what the strategy is about and what we're doing. And then please do reach out at any time if you have any questions and want to work together and support each other. Next slide. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Tracy. So at this point in time, we'd like to open things up as immediate Q&A. We already see that we have a question from Lindsay Smith from Real Agriculture, which is great. If any members of the media do have any questions, we just ask that you leave them in the chat there. Leave them in the Q&A and just indicate your name, your outlet. And if you do have a question or follow-up question, you can also add that in there as well. Alternatively, just raise your hand and we can go ahead and unmute you and you can ask your question out loud. Having said that, we do have a question from Lindsay Smith. So the abattoir slated for Napanese at a beef facility or multi-livestock, and as a follow-up, is food processing planned as part of that strategy? Are you able to comment on that, Tracy?
Yeah, so it'll be indirectly part of the strategy in the case that we're going to be supporting farmers and food producers in our area with opportunities and tools and resources. So one of the biggest gaps in rural communities, especially in the ag industry, has been the lack of processing. This happens all across Canada. And really importantly, it happens in Eastern Ontario. There is hardly any processors at this point. There's about half a dozen in the Hastings area. We have one just west of us in Yorker. There's a small one in Joyceville, none of which, and there's one actually the closest poultry processing is in Kemptville, and then the next one is west of Hastings. The challenge is that farmers and producers in any community, and especially rural Kingston, they have no access to opportunities to process their livestock or sell to the public or sell to retailers or sell to wholesalers because there's no processing capabilities. They're booking anywhere from 6 to 18 months ahead for their animals to be processed to sell. And it makes it really difficult for farmers to set goals and understand what their business model looks like if they don't have those choices to grow their farms. And the other piece is, which I think is a really strong piece, farmers, and I've worked with farmers for many, many years, farmers and food producers have had a real challenge with succession planning. I've seen been friends with multiple farmers with multiple generations, and sometimes having your children, family who have watched you work really hard all your life and not see necessarily great growth opportunities or financial results. It's a challenge to have succession planning happen as it did in the past with family to family and generation to generation. We're hoping with this new abattoir, especially because it's a federal facility, it will literally process everything except rabbit. And wild, I think wild animal is not included at this point as well. It will give options for farmers to open and grow their farms so that succession opportunities will not even be a question. They will be a full-on business that people will want to take over. I hope that answered your question.
Great. We do have another question from Steph Crozier at the WIG. Steph, I've gone ahead and unmuted you, so you can go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, I've two questions. With tourism, you mentioned the open farms. I'm just wondering if you could kind of give us some more examples of that, of tourism opportunities.
Oh, thank you, Steph. So yeah, literally my first meeting last night, it was the first meeting for 2022 for the Open Farms Group. They've been running for a few years, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. and it's typically been a Frontenac initiative. I know that Kingston Tourism has been a big proponent and supporter of the actual open farms and have done some collaborative work with some local restaurants, and actually I think there was our market in Kingston as well was supportive of a hub last year. I'm just getting to know what's happening with regard to that event, and we're happy to be collaborating and spreading it out into rural Kingston in hopes that our farmers will also participate. Last night's discussion was just a discussion with farmers to talk about how was it in the past, how did it look, how was it working, what could work better. And we're now just literally, I got an email this morning from the Frontenac group and South Frontenac just wanting to have a meeting again and talk about what does those next steps look like. I think there's an opportunity for us to be participating in a greater role, and we're happy to do so. So at this point, it's still under discussion.
Okay. And where does, I mean, much of that, I'm looking at like near CFB and everything, that used to be rural area, and we've seen it build up over the last 5-6 years with subdivisions. Where does the role of subdivision growth, where does that play in all of this? What's the role of that?
So I'm still getting my feet wet in that regard. Maybe this is a Craig answer. Craig, would you like to address this?
Thanks, Tracy. And I think this is a great example of why the city is becoming so actively involved in rural economic development. Again, part of our colleagues and partners at Kingston Economic Development again do amazing work supporting our businesses. A lot of business development, though, also interacts with several different municipal departments. So it could be planning, it could be transit, it could be, you know, again, it's across the complexity of our organization at the city. So having someone like Tracy to sort of help navigate, connect the rural communities to our city departments is again a great resource and an asset as we advance. Certainly, there's as the urban area grows, there are limitations within the urban boundaries. There are limitations in terms of cost with servicing. So with all those sort of caveats and sort of limitations, we are, you know, very eager to explore opportunities for innovation. And you know, again, we'll see as if the growth continues. Again, 7% is a very healthy growth in terms of our assessment base. All of which again allows us resources to invest back in our community.
And maybe this is my my ignorance for it, but doesn't bringing in a massive development, kind of bump heads with encouraging farmers and supporting farmers?
Well, I don't know which massive development you're sort of referencing. I don't think we have any massive developments that we're looking at right now. Again, one of the things that this strategy does stress is the critical importance of agriculture in our community, and again, understanding how agriculture it's not just a business; they help feed us, and again, that notion of local food production, food security, is a very important element to our community. I think the environmental component is also very important. You know, the fact that farms and our rural communities do provide important balance to our urban lifestyle. So yeah, I don't know, Your Worship, I don't know whether you had any additional comment.
No, I thought I'd jump in on that too. So Steph, I think, you know, the way I would frame it is that, you know, there's a huge interest in new businesses locating and growing here in Kingston. Some of them fit really well within the urban core, depending on what they're doing, what they're manufacturing, what their needs are. But there's other businesses that work really well in the rural area, and it doesn't take away from the rural character. It actually fits really well within the rural environment. So the nice thing is, because Kingston is so diverse, we have this urban core, but then we also have this rural area around it, that we can facilitate such a wide range of different developments. And so you can still have business growth, but still doesn't take away from the rural nature and environment of Kingston.
Okay, thank you.
All right. At this point in time, we don't see any additional questions from the media. However, we do have several members of industry and community partners that are on the call. So we are happy to open things up to any additional questions that anyone on the call may have and field a few questions there. And seeing them there. Oh, Craig, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wondered, I see Councillor Oosterhoff on the call. I wonder if he's been a champion of rural Kingston for many years. I wonder if he had any comments he wanted to share. He's usually not shy about commenting.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know how, forgive me. I honestly didn't know how this thing works. So great, thank you, Craig, for the invitation and for everyone's role in this, Mayor Patterson and Tracy. It's really good to be part of this, and I guess I have been a little bit quiet, but I certainly am excited about the partnerships that we have, and everybody's really saying the right things. And I think that moving forward, I mean, from the very beginning, I have since 2017, I guess I've been talking about rural economics, and in some ways, I think the rural area is a bit of a it's not sleeping giant. It is what it is, and I think that we've learned so much in the strategic planning of what really we provide for the city. And it's really in that context that I'm excited about it, because it's not like it's really going to be massive changes. It's about recognizing our role and enabling it. We're experiencing in some of the planning department on the review of the zonings. We're looking at just the work that Tracy can bring into it, and economic development. And it's been something that I've eyed for a long time, McAdoo Lane, what we can do there better, and seeing the interest that's in it. So for me as a councillor and representing the area and the finger that I have on the pulse of the area, and being on rural advisory and just having renewed energy there and involvement, I think it's all good, and it's really what I wanted to see all along. And to reach this point gives me a lot of satisfaction, but also realizing there's work to be done and conversations to be had, and directions to go in together. And it's about working together, and I'm pleased to be part of it.
Right, wonderful. Thanks, Councillor Oosterhoff. So with that in mind, I see that we don't have any additional questions from attendees here. So maybe we can move things into the final follow-up and media interviews. So if any members of the media do have any questions, additional comments, or anything like that they'd like to field, feel free to forward them along to communications at City of Kingston. I'll be able to get them along to Tracy and Craig as well. Same goes for if you're looking to coordinate an interview with Kingston's new Rural Economic and Community Development Manager. We're happy to set that up as well. So feel free to reach out. Other than that, stay tuned for some additional information coming from the Rural Kingston Economic Strategy. So thanks again to Mayor Patterson for joining us today, and as well for anyone following along on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
You.